sometime, sometimes, sometime, and sometimes. These are all different forms of an adverb, different variation that we use at different times. However, when we're speaking, you can't really tell on the fly. So let's talk about these common English phrases and how to properly use them, because in your writing, this matters. What's up, guys? Welcome to Why Girlfriends English. Today, Josh is sick. I'm doing this one myself, and I hope you get a lot of value out of it. Honestly, this is something that is really tricky in grammar, and in fact, American speakers also struggle with this one. Sometimes is an adverb meaning occasionally. We use this probably the most out of all of these. All of these that I'm going to share with you today, sometimes is the one that we use the most. Sometime alone, it's all one word, but without an S on the end. This one can be an adverb. We're going to have dinner sometime soon, but it could also be an adjective, like the sometime contributor or the sometime editor of something. We just use it meaning a vague time. It means at some time, at some point in the future. This is probably the easiest one to confuse with sometime in two words, whereas time is going to be a noun, some is going to be modifying that noun, and it just means some time. I would like some time this week, or I need some extra time this week to work on recording more videos. So sometime, meaning two words, is just a period of time. Now, the plural form of that same phrase is sometimes, two words, but the plural form, and this is when we're referring to times as in individual instances or individual events. And so we'll just say there are some times that are better than others, for example. Let's get into comparing these a little bit more, because this can be tricky. And then if you get the hang of it, you'll be able to test yourself at the end of this video. We have a quiz for you. So sometime versus sometimes. Let's just compare the first one-word versions of this. So sometime is an adverb, and we use it to explain an unspecified time in the future or in the past. Like I said, we will have dinner sometime soon, right? This is a great example of using it for the future. It's sometime soon, some point in the future, we're going to have this. But we can also use it in the past when we're really not sure what the time is, but we know it's sometime in the past. And that's exactly what we would say. We would say, they arrived sometime last night. Meaning we don't know when, we just woke up and they were here, kind of a thing. But you would just say, yeah, they arrived sometime last night. But again, you would also say they will arrive sometime tomorrow. Here's a great way that we would use this, and a great example, probably some of the most common ways that we would use this word. So when you add an S to that, you get sometimes, meaning occasionally, but it can also mean at certain times. So you could say, sometimes I just don't like studying English. Or you could say, I study English sometimes. So you can see this one, definitely the most common. Just make sure if you put it at the beginning of the sentence, most cases you're going to put a comma right after it to set it apart as like a transition phrase. You're just saying occasionally, comma, sometimes, comma. It's usually how it goes. So how do you know which one of these to use, sometime or sometimes? You know to use sometimes if you can swap the word out with occasionally, and it makes perfect sense and it's the same meaning. Okay, so if you can use it occasionally, make sure you use sometimes. But if you do know the time, you know it was in a specific time or after a certain time or before a certain specific time, then you can use sometime. So for example, they arrived sometime after 11 p.m. last night. Or they said they would get here sometime before 3. This is a great example of how to use this. All right, sometime, two words, and sometime. How do you know which one to use here? Because we almost pronounce it exactly the same. So how would you know? Sometime, two words, is a noun phrase that we use inside of an adverbial phrase. This is what the most confusing thing is for American English speakers even. When we begin to write the way that we speak, you should say that they arrived some time ago, two words. But you would say they arrived sometime last night, one word. Did you catch that? That's really, really tricky. If you can kind of get the hang of that, you will be doing well. The main difference between them, for those of you who are advanced, is the meaning of the length of time between the two relative to the situation we're talking about. So in they arrived some time ago, sometime is a noun phrase meaning a time period. In some time ago, some is modifying time, which is a noun. So you have some time, and then ago is an adverb that's saying like before, sometime before now. So some time ago, it's really tricky. It doesn't feel very logical when you first come across it, but if you can learn it, anytime that you're going to say some time ago, it's probably going to be two words. It just means a certain amount of time before. And the point of being vague, why would we be vague? Sometimes you don't know exactly when, so you just know that they've been around for a long time. You're probably going to say they got here some time ago. I don't know when, but it was some time ago. This is a way that we would often apply some time in two words. So sometime as one word can be an adjective meaning former or before or prior, but it can also be an adverb meaning at some unknown time, unspecified time. As I've been saying, we like to use this when we talk about characters in books. For example, we could say the sometime explorer talked for hours about his previous adventures or his adventures in his youth, for example. And sometime explorer, that kind of gives a picture that the person is much older. And so they were a sometime explorer, means sometime in the past they were an explorer. But we use it as an adjective to explorer, meaning it was before now, it was sometime before. But you can also say as the adverb, you can mean her oldest kid will have a birthday sometime next month. So you can see there, the meaning is just sometime, I don't know when, I do know it's next month, but I'm not sure which day. So sometime next month. This is far more common than saying, of course, the sometime explorer or the sometime politician or the sometime writer. However, we do use both forms. Just remember that these two are going to be all one word. It's just going to matter where you put your adverb versus your adjective. So here's a quick tip to help you understand which one to use, sometime, 2 words, or sometime, 1 word. If you can put quite before it and it makes perfect sense, then you're probably looking at sometime as in 2 words. So here's an example. She shopped around for quite some time. This would be 2 words, some time. It has been quite some time since I've seen you. Again, 2 words. So quite here, it means just a lot. It's been quite a bit of time. Those of you who have an ear for English already, especially American English, you're going to hear this quite a bit. This is going to hopefully click something for you in your mind. And hopefully you're going to begin hearing it quite a bit more. So the reason quite here works is because you need a noun phrase after quite in these cases, because it would be a bit awkward if you put quite and then you put an adverb sometime after it, the 1 word sometime after it. It would be very strange and not correct. There's other words that you can use sometime, 2 words with. You could do after, before, quite, during, for, and since. So you could say since sometime yesterday, or we've been doing this since sometime last year, right? This would be an example of using since. They've been doing this for some time. And there you could see, for those of you that have a really sharp ear, I could have also put for quite some time. We will come see you sometime before next year. The way that you know that it's going to be sometime with 1 word is that if there's a noun or noun phrase right after it, like explorer, writer, employee, something like this, then it's probably going to be an adjective. So the sometime employee, the sometime boss, the sometime driver, whatever it is, you're going to have a noun probably right after it because it's going to be acting as an adjective. These don't always hold true 100% of the time, but that will get you through most awkward situations with sometime and sometime. Okay, let's talk about a third difference. When would you use sometime, 2 words, with sometimes, 2 words? Which one? It seems easy in one hand because you've got a singular versus a plural, but again, time is supposed to be a non-count noun. Why would we make a non-count noun plural? Usually you can't put a number on a non-count noun, but time is different because it has different meanings. Some non-count nouns like time can actually also have a countable sense. We can refer to time as in an all time in a non-count sense, but we can also refer to individual instances or situations or events, and we can refer to each of those as a time. Therefore, all of them together could be times. There are many, many good times, for example. So as a noun phrase, sometime is usually used as the object of a preposition, meaning there's going to be a preposition right before it. So for example, we could say, we drove for some time. We drove for some time into the desert. You can also have some time. So I could say, I have some time this weekend to go for a hike, or I have some time next week to meet for coffee. You could also look at somebody else who's spending a lot of time on a hobby, and you could say, yeah, they have some time on their hands. So sometimes would be the plural form of this. There are some times that you really annoy me. Not you guys, of course, not you guys. But I could look at my younger brothers and say that. You could also say, some times are more chaotic than others. So how do you know which one you should use? Well, to test yourself, and a quick tip for those of you that are really confused about which one to use, if you can replace sometime with a short time or a long time and it makes sense, then you should use sometime. But if you're referring to several instances or events, then you need to say sometimes. You could even switch out times with days or weeks or months or events or situations, right? Some days are slower than others, or some memories never fade. So if you can replace the times with another noun that is countable and plural, then it's probably going to suit you better to say sometimes. All right, that was a lot. So if you guys made it through that, well done. Now it's time for a quiz. Let's see how well you can work this out, and feel free to pause the video, go back if you need to. But the point is, I want you to kind of test your understanding of this. Hopefully you were taking notes this whole time. If not, go back and take some notes and use your notes to see if you can decipher the answers to these quiz questions. So the answer to number 1 is some time ago. Okay, 2 words. Mandy bought the house some time ago. So we don't know when, we just know it was before. And we cannot use sometime after or sometime before here because you need to have a time right there. You need to have some kind of time to say after, before, or after in this case. The second one is sometime before or sometime after. So Mandy bought the house sometime before the recession or sometime after the recession. Here you have recession. You have a point that the 2 people communicating understand. They're talking about the recession. They understand which one they're talking about. So Mandy bought the house sometime before it or sometime after it. If you put down one of or both of these answers, you've got it right. Number 3 is sometime before. Sometime being 2 words. So it was some time before Mandy could buy the house. And we know this because we need a noun phrase there. It was some time before. We know this especially because you have could buy on the end there. So number 4 is sometime since. Sometime being 2 words here. It has been some time since Mandy bought the house, right? It's been a while since she has bought the house. If you could say it's been a while, then it has been some time since would work as well. Number 5 is after some time, meaning 2 words for some time. After some time, Mandy bought the house. So you can tell this is going to be the case because it's the object of a preposition, and sometime, 2 words being a noun phrase, you should say after some time, comma, Mandy bought the house. Again, you have this answer too with the next one, which is for some time. For some time, meaning the preposition for, you're going to have a noun phrase after it. So for some time, 2 words. That's what best completes. Mandy lived in the house for some time before she sold it. Finally, the last one is sometimes, which is the easiest one for us. Mandy sometimes buys houses to renovate and flip for a profit. We can replace this with occasionally, and it makes perfect sense. So the answer here is sometimes. Well done, guys. This one was hard. This one is a very difficult one to do. I hope you guys were able to make a little bit of sense with this. If you are an intermediate speaker, this is really tricky for you right now. Those who are advanced, or you're already C2, or you're already fluent, you've already reached fluency, this is something for you. This is something to really work on and just make sure you're using it right. Thankfully, we have a lot of programs these days that will tell us if we're not right. They'll flag something if it seems wrong, but even those are not always correct, depending on how much you're manipulating the language. But it always pays to know which one to use when you're making a presentation or you're sending an email. It's good to know which one you should be using in a certain place. If you want more practice like this, sign up for our newsletter below at the link below in the description. I'll also put it in the comment. But we send lessons like this every few weeks, and we send lots of tips for learning English and studying as an advanced learner, working to get through to fluency. So if you're interested in some free help with that, go ahead and sign up for our email list so you can be getting that in your inbox every single week. Thank you guys so much for watching every single week. If you're interested in working on some more difficult things with grammar in English, we actually have a couple videos on this channel about articles and how to use them properly in English. On the pronunciation checklist here on our channel, we actually have 2 videos on when to use a and when to use an in English, especially with H and U, because to give you the secret, those are the 2 letters that are most difficult to know which one to use. And it all comes down to pronunciation to understand how to use them. We also have a video about how to use the properly, because sometimes we use the and sometimes we don't, and it might look exactly the same. The sentence looks the same, except sometimes we drop the. We have actually covered some rules and given some worksheets on how to do that. So again, you can head over to those videos. I'll put the link to all 3 of those videos in the description below so that you guys have access to them and can move on to that if you're ready for another grammar lesson. All right, guys, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye.